Hey there! So welcome to my introductory video on this module. My name is Brett and I was a graduate from Catholic Junior College. And I got an A for my H1 history with minimal effort. So you might be wondering why I included the part on minimal effort. So I'm going to assume that everyone in JC is going to be really busy. So come on, if you can get an A with minimal effort, why wouldn't you want that? Okay, so definitely in this video and throughout this entire course, I'll be sharing with you how we can go about doing that. Here is what I'll cover in this lesson. Take note that this lesson is actually Module 1, Introduction to H1 History. And for the first lesson in this module, it's titled H1 History. So here's what we'll cover in this lesson. Number 1, we'll go through the course objectives, which is the objectives for this entire course. Secondly, I'll go through with you the module content, the course content, and I'll give you a very short introduction to SBQ and SEQ assessment format, which is listed by SEAB. So these are the course objectives. So I'd like to share with you my personal study approach to history. I'd like to pick out essential content for SBQ. I actually like to highlight essential content for SBQ because the amount of information you can find on your SBQ is so vast. You could search the net, you could read your notes, you could read books. So what are you supposed to study then? Do you just study your notes? Do you study other schools' notes? So you might be very confused as to what you need for the SBQ. So I encourage you to think of it this way. Because these things that you're going to be learning or these case studies you're going to be looking at are meant for you to actually apply. Okay? Apply. So what do I mean by apply? I'll go through this slightly later, but the gist of it is, so you need all of these such that you can apply contextual knowledge in your SBQ. So let's actually target the contextual knowledge that you can work with in your SBQ. Okay? Next, I'll introduce to you the recommended SBQ answering framework. And I'll introduce to you the recommended essay structure. So notice I use the word recommended for both essay structure and SBQ answering frameworks. This is because these frameworks work for me. It might not work for you. You might not like it. You might not want to use it. You might prefer the ones that you have already. So it's really up to you whether you like to take it or not. But my advice to you is listen to everything. Take what you feel is necessary and useful to you and forget about the rest that you struggle to understand or whatsoever. Okay, in Module 1, Introduction to H1 History, there will be 3 lessons. The first lesson, which is this one, we're going through just H1 History. So it's just literally the Introduction to H1 History, Introduction to H1 History. In Lesson 2, I'll go through review the recommended resources which I want you to have. And lastly, I'll go through review the recommended study approach for H1 History. So once again, recommended. These are my personal recommendations. You can trust me, you can choose not to trust me, but listen to what I have to say and decide what you want to keep with you. Okay, in this course, I'll be going through with you Module 1, Introduction to H1 History. Module 2, Political Effectiveness of the UN. We'll be doing our conflict case studies. Module 3, we'll go through the Political Effectiveness of the UN Secretary General case study. So we look at the individual Secretary Generals and we see what information is useful to us for SBQ. Module 4, we'll go through SBQ answering techniques. And the last module, I'll go through review essay writing skills. Okay, so the assessment format is as such. You have 25% allocated to your SBQ and 75% allocated to your SEQ. So 25% literally translates to 25 marks, 1 question for SBQ, and you have to answer 3 questions for your SEQ. 1 is 25 marks, 3 questions, 75 marks. So these total up to 100%, 100 marks. Okay, so for the SBQ, there will be 1 compulsory source-based study on the political effectiveness of the UN from 1945 to 2000. This question carries 25 marks. The sources may or may not be in your syllabus. This is because you take H1 history. If you take H2 history, the chances of the sources being something that you have learned before is a lot higher. So if you're taking H1 history, don't worry if you get sources on conflicts or events which you have never heard of before, because this means that your contextual knowledge will not be required in the evaluation of the source. So this is what the SEAB want from you. So what exactly does all of this mean? So what they essentially want from you is for you to evaluate the reliability of each source. I actually cover the skills to evaluate reliability in Module 4. Next, you have to pick out key information from each reliable source and use all the information from the reliable sources to answer the question. Don't worry if you don't understand what I'm talking about now. It will become clearer and clearer as you progress through this module. For ICQ, there will be a total of 5 essay questions, with 1 question on each of the following themes, and the last 2 questions on any 2 themes. The first theme is the Cold War and how it shaped the world. The second theme is the development of the global economy. The third theme is conflict and cooperation. So candidates are required to answer 3 questions, and each question carries 25 marks. The demands of this question will clearly be stated in the question itself, and Module 5 will guide you through one way of question interpretation. When I say one way of question interpretation, I mean my way of question interpretation. Okay, so this is something that I'd like to share with you. If you took history before, you'll probably be very familiar with spotting themes. So what they're saying here is that since there'll be 1 question on each of the following themes and the last 2 questions of any 2 themes, it means that there will definitely be 1 question on the Cold War, 1 question on the global economy, and 1 question on conflict and cooperation. The other 2 questions would either be Cold War, development of global economy, and conflict and cooperation. So it's very highly likely that you would have 2 questions on 2 themes, and the last theme there'll only be 1 question appearing from there. So if you think about it, you need to answer only 3 questions. So one way to significantly cut out a lot of content from your studying is to cut out 1 theme from what you actually study for your A-levels. Okay, I'm going to repeat that again. So for example, if there are 3 questions on the Cold War, 1 on the global economy, and 1 on conflict and cooperation, and you spotted global economy and conflict and cooperation, chances are your results would most probably be very severely affected because you only answered 2 questions. But that, once again, as I emphasize, is very, very unlikely. So decide what you want to do, and of course, if you have the time, please study everything. Okay, so we have reached the end of this lesson, and what we covered is the course objectives, the module content, the course content, and introduction to SVQ and SEQ format. The next lesson in this module will be Lesson 2, Recommended Resources.